Welcome back to TMZ Sports. Mike Babcock here. This guy doesn't need any introduction, but of course, I give it to him
But you're gonna give me
anyway.
one anyways,
I
right?
would give
Yeah,
it to him
please.
anyway. An absolute legend. FTW champ. Just defend the belt, retain the belt. Close, Chris, but obviously double or nothing just went down. We've got AEW Dynamite in LA tomorrow. First things first. Talk to me about the double or nothing match. You're 53. You're still out there. You're still killing it. Still looking good. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Like I think, I just went and saw the Stones last week, and Mick is 80, and you look at this guy, and he lives in a different planet. And I think it's
Yeah.
because he's been doing it since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
I think that's the same with me. I don't see myself as 53. I don't feel 53. I
Yeah.
don't work like I'm
Not at
53.
all.
I just do what I do, and I think it's more instinct at this
Yeah.
point in time. So when people go, "Oh my gosh!" Like there was a spot in that match where they literally dumped me on the back of my head,
Yeah.
suplexed me on the back of my head,
Yep.
and I'm like, "Fuck, man! Like that's not good."
Right.
But with years of experience, it's just another. You absorb it and you continue and move forward. So
Right.
if I didn't think I could still compete at the highest of levels, it wouldn't matter if I'm 53, 33, 73.
Right.
I wouldn't do it. But for me right now, I'm so excited about AEW, so excited about all elite wrestling and what we're doing, and excited about the learning tree and all the stuff that I'm doing with
Yeah.
the For the World Championship. That those things kind of just don't even matter. It's
Right.
all about what you're feeling and the passion that I have for this creative element that we're enjoying right now.
Right. I don't think anyone looks at you and says, "Oh, you're slowing down," or "That's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
Jericho anymore." Like you don't get that feeling at
yeah,
all
yeah.
watching you. Even.
Haters would say that, which is where the
Yeah.
whole learning tree
Yeah.
gimmick came from. Just
Yeah.
lean into it.
Yeah.
But I know I can feel it, and I know what I'm capable of. And the last thing I would do is just be here for the sake of being here.
Yeah.
That's not my vibe. I love working for AEW. It's probably my most favorite time I've had in the business, I think.
Really.
Yes, because
That's saying a lot.
we're growing together. Like this. I consider AEW to be my company.
Yeah.
Because I was here since day one.
Right. Right.
We just had our 5-year anniversary, and there's so much going on this year with the television deal, and then we did the biggest wrestling show of all time last summer at Wembley. So there's so many really cool milestones, and I really feel like this is my band. I helped
Yeah.
start this band, and I'm super proud of everything that we've done as a result of it.
Do you ever say, "Okay, well, that's the number," or is it just based off of the feeling, like you just described?
That's the
Is there ever you say, "Okay, well, when I'm 60, that's it," or is it just
No.
Is it just as long as I feel good and
Yeah, I would never put a timeline
Yeah.
on anything. It's like Kiss does a retirement tour, and then 2 years later they're still on the tour, and then
Yeah.
10 years later they're done with it, or whatever it may be.
Right.
I've never been that type of guy to put a number on it. It's how I feel. Had there been no AEW, I don't know if I'd still be wrestling right now, to be honest
Wow.
with you, because I left WWE. I went to start working for New Japan.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic happened. You had to go quarantine there for 2 weeks. I never would stay in a hotel room for 2 weeks. I'd lose my mind.
Right.
There's no way. So AEW kind of came at the exact right time and reinvigorated my passion and love for the business and the creativity.
Right.
It was a whole new thing. And also too, like, okay, now we have to put our money where our mouth is and build this company together. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted it to come to AEW, is because I could stay with WWE or go to New Japan, and that's fine.
Right.
But what if we create something new that changes the business forever?
Right.
What an addition to the legacy of Chris Jericho that would be. And that's one of the reasons why I decided, let's give this a chance and see where we can go with it. And here we are now. So I don't put a number on anything. It's how I feel, and more mentally than physically.
Yeah.
Physically is fine. Mentally is where you have to be 1,000% committed to really make a difference in pro wrestling and entertainment and AEW.
Where do you want to take the company from here? Because you are obviously still one of the pillars of AEW.
Right.
Where do you go from here now? It's been an incredibly successful 5 years. What does the future look like as far as you see it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think once again, like live sports is such a commodity
Yeah.
nowadays, more than probably anything else. So you can go watch a show on Netflix or Hulu, and you can binge all 10 episodes in a night, or maybe wait a week in between. It doesn't matter. Live sports, you have to watch it as it happens. And AEW is included in that with the NBA and the NHL and NFL. So this is our contract year, and this is with so much emphasis now. Wrestling companies don't make as much money off of live ticket sales or or pay-per-view. like it used to be. Now it's all about the television rights. So what
Wow.
I'd like to see, and we're getting down to the wire, is to get the deal that I know we've earned with the demos that we have and being number one on cable or number one behind NBA and NHL, which is of all of cable, and to secure the deal that I think we have earned, and then to really see where we can take it. And I think it's just growing, not just in the States, but start going international. We did 81,000 people in Wembley Stadium last summer. We're going back in this summer. We've never been to Australia. We've never been to Japan. We've never been to Mexico or Europe besides England. So there's so many places we can go. So I would like to see us expand outside of just the United States and Canada and go into all these other markets where we have huge fan bases.
How important is it to continue bringing in big stars? I know a lot of people are talking about Becky Lynch now, and where does she do? Where does she go? What happens with her? How important is that?
It's very important because the best thing that ever happened to pro wrestling in the modern era was AEW existing. My dad played for the NHL for 10 years, and he was playing for the New York Rangers in 1972 when Bobby Hull signed with the WHA. Got $1 million to jump from the NHL. And what did that do? It raised everybody's salaries.
Yeah.
He went from 135. He went from 35 grand to 135 grand just so they wouldn't go to the WHA.
Right.
That's what happened when All Elite Wrestling started. When Chris Jericho signed there, suddenly everybody's getting these huge raises in WWE to not come to AEW.
Right.
Tony Khan, our owner, owns the Jaguars. They have a lot of money in the family, so he can play that game all day long. And that's why we brought in Will Ospreay and Mercedes Moné and Kazuchika Okada. Like you mentioned, Becky Lynch. 5 years ago, Becky would have no other options.
Right.
Not saying that she's coming, but there is an option.
Right.
And who knows what could happen.
Yeah.
No one thought that Jericho would come to AEW. No one thought that Moxley would come, or Bryan Danielson, or Adam Cole, or any of these guys that have come over. So it's exciting for the fans, and it's exciting for the wrestlers, the talent, because now suddenly if there's a bidding war, that just benefits us. So I think it's very important. And listen, that was one of the things of being in the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars with Nitro and Raw. You never knew who was going to show up.
Right.
And when somebody new would come from whatever side it was to the other, it made things so much more exciting.
Yeah.
So many more matches that you can have.
Right.
So many more possibilities of seeing guys go up against each other that you never thought about. So it's a really exciting time in wrestling, and that's another reason why.
You got any Becky scoop?
I don't. I just found out. I probably found. You probably know more than I do. You probably found out more than I do. So once again, and the speculation of it,
Right? I know there's a lot of talk.
Is the best part,
Right? Oh yeah, it's exciting.
So
you can tell the fans are excited.
Well, yeah, and whether it happens or doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. The buzz about it is there. The possibility is there, and like I said, I think we've done a great job of bringing in some really huge names into our roster. We just had Sting retire earlier this year. I think Sting meant more in AEW than he ever did anywhere else, except for maybe WCW in the late '90s. We've done a really good job with building our legends, building the talent that we've brought in, and building our home base stars. We've got I love working for the Khan family because they have a very sports oriented mentality. From owning the Jags and for owning Fulham in the Premier League in England, the football team there, soccer, as we say. You've got your seasoned vets that have won Stanley Cups, and you've got guys in their prime that are scoring 40, 50 goals a year. Then you've got the guys that are the grinders that are still starting to fill. Then you've got the rookies that are up and coming.
Right.
Then you've got the farm team of guys waiting to get onto the roster. I think we've got a great team in AEW.
It's a good mix.
It's a good mix, yeah. And you have to have a team mentality when you're in pro wrestling because every segment, every match on the show has to build to the next to make the overall show amazing. And if everybody plays their part like a great team, you know that the show will be amazing and that the company will benefit from that.
You talked about the learning tree. You talked about some of the younger wrestlers. How important is it to you? It seems like it is. How important is it to you to mentor some of these people who are coming up? There's not a situation you probably haven't been through in professional wrestling. How important is that?
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I'm still here in a lot of ways. I mean, when we first started at AEW, I was the biggest name on the roster from a nationwide basis. Yeah. But I knew I only had maybe 3 months tops of that. We have to build as many people as we can. So we built Orange Cassidy and Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson. Moxley was not as big of a star then as he is now.
Right.
Kenny Omega, one of the best wrestlers in the world that maybe a lot of people weren't familiar with in North America. Hangman Page, Darby Allin. These are guys that I had worked with right as we came out of the gate. And even now with the Learning Tree, with Big Bill, the Redwood, and you want to work with these younger guys. MJF, I did a whole year program with him that really helped him get to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do, which is funny because a lot of people with the negativity online would say I'm doing the opposite, and just this whole company is just a playground for Chris Jericho, and anybody that works with him ends up being lower on the roster. And it's like, that's where this whole Learning Tree thing came from. And the Jericho Vortex. I'll bring everybody into the Jericho Vortex, not just to teach you wrestling lessons, but life lessons as well. I want to make you a better person in and out of the ring. And then you kind of build upon that, read the room, lean into the hate. But I know what I bring to the table in AEW and how much time I've spent with all of the roster, with the girls and the guys, and just giving advice. Like you said, this is not an easy business to navigate. There's no other business like pro wrestling. And, with 33 years of experience, there isn't a situation I haven't been in. So you want to help with that, help guys grow. But I learned from those guys too.
It also seems like if there's ever a tragedy outside of the ring, you're always there, it seems, for these wrestlers, whether it's, participating in a GoFundMe. It seems like you really have the wrestling community's back in a big way. That's at least been my.
I do. I was fortunate enough to get to a point where I can help a lot of guys and girls in the wrestling business, because you got to respect the legends that came before you, the people that paved the way for us. And like I mentioned with the AEW Bobby Hull scenario, salaries have finally gone to where, or getting closer to where I think our talent in every company should be getting. A lot of the old school brothers didn't get that. They were riding the roads 300 days a year, for whatever they could make. And when that was 35 years ago, that money goes away.
They're not set. They're
not set the way that the modern performers are. So I'll always keep an eye on that and try and help out when I can, because those guys earned it. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. And I think I started as a fan, and I'll always be a fan. And when you're talking about guys from the 80s that I used to go to Winnipeg Arena and stand outside in the cold and wait for them to come out and hopefully get an autograph and just take a picture, whatever it may be. That means a lot to me to still be able to help those guys or put them on the Jericho Cruise. Which is
I saw that. Looks like a lot of fun too.
Yeah. We Fozzy, my band, played the Kiss Cruise in 2015.
Is that where you got the idea?
I got the idea because we were on the stage playing, and I'm noticing that the amps aren't moving and the drums aren't moving and everything's just like, it's just kind of like you're at sea. But I was thinking,
right.
And I was like, well, you could probably wrestle like this.
So
pitching that idea, once again, you might have thought that I was, had two heads, but it finally we were able to figure out a way to make it work. I had to get like a team of engineers to figure out a way to make sure the ring doesn't move. If there's ever any big waves. So we got that figured out. And we were getting ready to do our sixth voyage.
How do you make sure the ring doesn't?
So I've got the patent on it, by the way. It's with ballasts, water ballasts. So they're big cubes that you fill. There's 4 of them. You fill them full of water. And the water is so heavy, and then you build the ring over top of these cubes. So no matter what happens, if the ship is like there's a tsunami, these cubes won't move because it's just too heavy.
Skyscrapers have these things.
Yes. So it cannot move. So because I was like, we'll just chain it. You can't chain it. So we figured that out.
Wow.
So
and you've actually patented that.
Yes. If any other fucking assholes out there want to do their own wrestling cruise, they got to get their own.
Are you gonna be able to make some money? Can you sell? I mean,
I probably could. I'd be like Michael Jackson, who patented the smooth criminal, like doing this sort of thing.
That's great.
So we were able to get that going. So I do a mix of like AEW wrestlers, but some of the legends and the Hall of Famers and that sort of a thing. And it's cool. Like I just booked Coco Beware for this year's cruise. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I remember waiting in Gold's Gym to get Coco's autograph when I was probably 16 years old.
So you were a big wrestling guy. It's not like you weren't playing football and you said, hey, you want to come have a tryout? Okay, I'll wrestle.
No.
You were a big wrestling guy as a kid.
Well, in high school, all we had for sports was water polo and basketball. And I was terrible at basketball. I played water polo and made the obvious decision to go from water polo to wrestling.
Of course,
No, but
naturally.
I decided very young that I wanted to be in a band and I wanted to be a wrestler, and just started focusing on that and didn't really care about anything else.
Wow.
You know, my dad, like I said, played pro hockey, and I played hockey for a bit, but it was always about wrestling after school with my friends and having the jams in your parents' basement, and that's kind of what was always intrigued me the most.
Wow. Was your dad supportive of
Yeah, very.
wrestling?
He knew I wasn't very good at hockey.
Right.
But he supported, like, you know, he left school at 17 when he got drafted by the Boston Bruins, like in 1965 or whatever it was. So he understood of like taking a chance and going into something that maybe people would think is kind of strange.
Right.
I remember when I first started, everyone's like, "Oh, you're too small to be a wrestler," and it's like, it's because, you know, it was all about big guys,
Right.
6'8",
Right.
300 pounds,
Right.
Hulk Hogan. And I just never cared what anybody thought. I just thought, well, you know, why are you worried about what I want to do? I'm going to do it and
Right.
kind of figure out a way to make it work. And the way to do it back then was to go overseas, to go to other
Wow.
countries, Mexico and Japan, because the guys were smaller, and it wasn't about the size; it was about your work rate, as we call
Right.
it, the quality of matches that you
Right.
could have. So that was where I was able to find my first bit of success was in Mexico and Japan specifically.
Could 10-year-old Chris Jericho have ever imagined that this would be possible? I mean, what you've done?
You know, I don't know, because I remember my big goal when I was a kid was at Westwood Collegiate, where I went to high school. There's a big sign. It's those letters that a guy has to go up and replace the letter.
Yeah.
And I always envisioned, like, they would say, you know, congratulations to, you know, Joe Schwartz for being on the honor roll.
Right.
And I wanted, like, congratulations to Chris Irvin for being WWF Intercontinental Champion. And I never got that, but I was
Right.
always like, okay, I can be the
You pictured that
champion.
you could see it happening.
And then now I'm the most Intercontinental champions of all time. 9 is the
Right.
record, the biggest record.
Right.
So I mean, I can't, you know, picture not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, we opened for Iron Maiden at the Bank of California Stadium here in LA, 2019. When stuff like that happens, that's where you're like, I can't believe this.
Really?
Like,
Yeah. Like,
freaking Iron
am I
Maiden,
doing
dude.
that?
Like,
Right.
we stood in the winter, like, you know. So there are those types of elements, or like 81,000 people at Wembley Stadium. I started with the Freddie Mercury, hey-oh,
Right.
and it was like just stuff like that, like just stuff that you watch so much as a kid. You know, the first time I wrestled against Hulk Hogan,
Right.
you know, that sort of a thing. Those are watermarks that you never forget.
What's going on with music? I know you've got big shows. I saw you're actually doing something at Wembley with Swerve.
So yeah, so we did it
Yeah.
last year, and this year it's 2 days before. Wembley's on the Sunday, and we have a show on
Amazing.
Friday. And we're gonna have Swerve be our special guest.
I love that.
Swerve's rap career is growing, and what a huge star he is.
Yeah.
He's our world champion right now.
He was
in
he
AEW.
sat here
Yeah.
2 weeks ago or so, maybe less. And
Yeah, he's a guy. The moment
great.
he came to AEW, I was like, okay, he's gonna be a champion.
Yeah, you could tell.
So we are doing that show in August, and then we go back out in October. It's our 25th anniversary tour,
Wow.
which is crazy. Yeah, so we'll go all around the world with that. But for right now, we're off this summer.
Is it possible? What provides a bigger thrill? Is it just different? I mean, is it possible to even say?
Yeah, I mean, people say if you had to choose one,
Right.
it's like I don't have
You
to.
don't have to, right?
Yeah,
That's
because
the
I
beauty of it, right?
orchestrated both.
Right.
So they're
Why
both
pick?
amazing, and
Yeah.
and that's why like for example, I have such a connection with AEW because I was here from the start, and I really feel like this is, and it is. It's my company. It's Tony's
Yeah.
company, and we've built it together. It's the same with Fozzy. You know,
Yeah.
our song Spotlight was just #1 for 8 weeks straight.
Incredible.
Judas went gold record on the wall. I mean, this is a band that when we started, it's like, oh, it's just a wrestler's band,
Right.
and bah ha ha. And now it's like, we've got a lot of really cool things that have happened. It just goes to show, like, if you want to do something, don't listen to critics. Just go do it.
Right.
Just go do it, man. That's the only goal and lesson that I would ever try and tell anybody is if you want to do something, go do it. If it doesn't work out, it's okay, but at least you tried. Most of the time, though, if you have the skill for it and if you really want to do it and you really take the time and make the sacrifices, it'll pay off. Most of the time, it will.
That's awesome. I know you got to go in a second. Talk to me about Dynamite. What do we got going on this week?
Yeah, we have a great relationship with Los Angeles and the Forum. It's become a great wrestling venue for
Yeah.
us. We never wrestled the Forum before. It was always the Staples, and I think that it's a rock and roll party, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have rewritten the rules of what a pro wrestling show is. So many great things going on right now with Swerve being the champ and
Yeah.
Mercedes Moné's our new TBS Women's Champ, and of course with the Learning Tree and the stuff we're doing with that, which has so much cool momentum right now. It's exciting. It's fun to see these new acts. MJF just came back, which is one of our biggest stars.
Yeah, how are you relieved about that? How
Yes.
happy are you about
Yes,
that?
very happy. I mean, once again, he worked the system to where there's two options.
Right.
He's a homegrown star for us.
Right.
I knew that probably he would stay, but
Right.
you never know for sure.
You want to try and hold on to those guys,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, he like you says, he's a generational talent.
Yeah.
He really is, and he's just scratching the surface. Like I always say, like he has no idea how good he is, and he probably thinks he's better than he really
Right.
is. Just wait another couple years, and just see what happens. Just,
Hasn't even peaked yet.
hasn't even peaked, and same with the scapegoat Jack Perry.
Yeah.
Just a kid. Like these guys are so good, and they're just starting to figure it out. Like 5 years is not a long time.
No.
Like if you look at Chris Jericho's career, I really became a huge star and really started feeling it in about 2008. 18 years in.
Wow.
I'd already been the undisputed
Wow. So he's
champion,
nowhere
beat
close.
The Rock and Steve Austin the same
Right.
night. That was in 2001.
Wow.
7 years after, when I started working the story with Shawn Michaels, is when I really started feeling like, okay, now I get it. So it takes a while for guys to get it, and they got it now. Just wait and see what happens for in a few more years. It's very exciting for all of us.
Last question, because I do know you have to go. Compare young guys now to where they were when you were getting started. I think in a lot of sports, basketball, football, guys
Sure.
are far more advanced
Yeah.
than they were back in the day. Is that the case in wrestling too?
Yeah, I mean, athleticism is through the roof.
More
It's
athletic than it used to be?
Completely. Like, remember, like the lion salt, the move I do from the second rope, kind of a backflip thing. That was the biggest deal in
Right.
like 1994. Like, oh my gosh! Now guys do that literally sleeping. They're
Right.
counting lion
That's
salts
it.
instead of counting sleep, counting sheep. But it's still storyline and character, and then that's what we have to teach the younger
Right.
guys. Another thing about the way the business is now is like we were working, 4 times a week, 5 times a week. When I was living in Mexico, I was working 10 times a week sometimes. It was just rep. It's not like that now. So working even with a young guy, Hook, that I've been doing a story with for the last few months, he's learning on live TV.
Wow.
And that's good in some ways. In other ways, there's not a lot of room for error.
Right.
And people are very critical now.
Right,
So you have
right.
to have a very
Internet,
thick
social
skin.
media,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is. We used to have house shows, they call them live events now, where you would go, it'd be non-televised.
Right.
You could just go, like, okay, it's a Sunday afternoon in Poughkeepsie.
Right.
If it's great, it's great. If it sucks, it sucks.
Right.
It
But
doesn't
try
matter.
things out. I'm
That's
sure,
right. You try things out.
Right.
You work on your character. You
Right.
try moves. That element is kind of lost.
Right.
So, like I said,
Is that social media? Because
kind of, but also too, like the business has changed to where I said it's so much about television
Right.
contracts and stuff.
Right.
Doing those live events doesn't really help. And if you're doing the indies, it's cool.
Yeah.
But for a guy like Hook, like he started the Guns, the
Yeah.
Gun Club. They started on TV. Their
Right.
first match was
crazy.
on TV in
That's
AEW.
That's crazy.
So you're thrown into the fire.
Right.
So these guys got to learn, and they got to learn quick. And that's
Yeah.
also another reason why I got to be there to help them along as quick as much as I can. And if there's a mistake, it's okay.
Right.
What everyone's it's fine.
okay, right.
Although they said I botched it, which is the dumbest word ever. It's fine. The next week is a new week, and
Right.
we move on and we learn, and you got to hit the ground running, as David
Right.
Lee Roth said, man, unchained, and so that's a big difference. But you can't sit there and go back in my day, because it doesn't matter what happened in your day.
Right.
This is the day we live in now. And people always ask, what's your favorite era of Chris Jericho? I always say the one I'm in right now, the learning tree. Because
like
if it's not, then why am I doing it?
Right. What's the point?
There's been a lot of great moments, but I like this era. I like what's going on right now, and I'm excited to do this on Dynamite tomorrow night, or is it tonight? Tonight?
Maybe
What do we say? Is it
I don't know.
tomorrow night?
Tonight?
On Wednesday.
What do we do? We do this tomorrow. or
Dynamite on
tonight?
Wednesday night. Whichever day you're watching this, it's on Wednesday at the Forum. I'm going to be there, Learning Tree. I'm debuting my new talking segment, TV Time.
There we go.
Who wants more TV time? The Learning Tree does.
Thank you, Chris.
You got it, man.
I
Thanks.
appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.